Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for The King in Giallo, and let's do another unscripted movie review. I finished watching Naked You Die, and, you know, this movie started out so strong. I'll get this out of the way. Odd that a movie has naked in the title and doesn't actually have any full nudity. But yes, no, there are people that are getting killed while they're naked, but we don't really see the nudity, which is not a problem, but maybe don't put that in the title. Okay, so this movie started out pretty strong. Woman gets killed in a bathtub, and then she gets stuffed into a trunk, and the trunk gets dragged down the stairs and is put on top of a van, and the next thing we know, this van is en route to an all-girls school with, in the van is like a new teacher who's coming to replace one of them, I believe. And oddly enough, the voice dubbing for this woman is very clearly a man. And it wasn't like, oh, she's got kind of like a raspy, like a gravelly voice. It was like, that's a dude.
Ce ne sono molte.
Molto rari.
Sì, mi farà piacere visitarla. Vi abita qualcuno?
No.
And I was like, so that's the killer, right? That's going to be the reveal? And, bless this movie's heart. There was a good soundtrack. In fact, there was a really good song that played once they pull up to the school that I was like, dude, this is a good song. However, the song that opens the movie sounded like a mix of Jefferson Airplane, Somebody to Love, with the Batman song.
When you sleep, and a dream seems to be like a nightmare.
It was amazing how it would pivot between sounding like Janis Joplin in that song to also just kind of like Batman.
When you wake, but the dream is still there.
Except it wasn't Batman. I think they were saying nightmare or something, but yeah, that song was all right. But okay, so and then this was directed by Antonio Margheriti, and I kind of had higher hopes. And like I said, the movie started out pretty strong, but one thing that it was doing consistently, which I was really getting on my nerves, was the kills were really, really bad. It would be like the equivalent of like hands going up to someone and like kind of throttling them, but not really. So it would just be like this, and then the person would be like, oh. And it was just so quick. It wasn't like, it was just like, and they're dead. And there was a scene where another girl gets killed in the bathroom in a shower, and the killer comes up behind her and grabs her from behind the shower curtain. And again, she's just like, and this happened a lot. And so that got really, that was just like, damn it. I was really expecting, those to be handled a little bit better. But Mark Damon is in this, and he's, pretty boy. So I was thinking, okay, he could be the killer, because this kind of, in the 60s, they would usually have like uglier guys all around. So you'd think, oh, that's got to be the killer. And then surprise, no, it's actually the pretty boy. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe it's Mark Damon. But every time they cut to that teacher, Miss Clay, and she talked like this, like, yes, I'll go do that. I was like, it's her. It's going to be a surprise. And again, this movie is just It's kind of just telegraphing it a little too strong. I have seen movies, horror movies, giallo movies, where there is a, um, a gender component where somebody is in disguise. I won't say necessarily cross-dressing because it's for the purpose of deceiving everyone. But when they do it, they usually at least have if it's a guy who's dressing up as a woman so he can sneak around, at least it's usually kind of like a feminine voice and vice versa. But this was, again, just like, not sure why they chose to do that. I mean, I guess they're being honest somewhat, but yeah. But I was really hoping, like I said, the movie started out pretty strong, and I was really hoping for the best, and I was thinking, like, this ought to be a movie that Vinegar Syndrome should get a hold of for their Forgotten Gialli box sets. And, I'd still appreciate it if they did. I mean, I don't own it. I watched it for free on YouTube. So it would be cool to have it remastered. It kind of like Death Occurred Last Night. There was potential. And I think the movie still deserves to get a remastering, get a nice re-release for giallo fans and collectors. But yeah, if you want a better version of a killer at an all-girls school, watch The House That Screamed. In fact, I think I actually have a copy of it right here because I was doing a video where I was holding up all these, like physical media, and for whatever reason, I have it right here. It's from Arrow, Spanish movie. You could say a Spanish giallo. Again, got to be careful because I don't want those gatekeepers coming after me. Oh my god, I can't believe you said The House That Screamed is a giallo. Jeez. But that's a phenomenal movie in comparison. But that's not to say that Naked You Die was bad. At a point I kind of was checking out, and what a pity, because it was a pretty good investigation. It was a pretty good string of red herrings. There was one that I thought was interesting. Again, I never fell for any of the red herrings. I always thought, okay, it's that teacher, possibly Mark Damon. But there was one where it was like a guy on the property. I don't remember what his occupation was, but some girl almost got like killed in a pool with someone who was in like diving equipment. And then they find this guy walking around outside, and the inspector goes up to him, and he's wearing like diver's pants, and he's like, "Where's the top?" And he's like, I'm not wearing a diver's top." And he's like, "Well, where's the breathing apparatus?" And he's like, I wasn't diving. And he's like, "Well, why are you dressed in diver's pants?" And he's like, "Oh, because I'm trying to lose weight, and I figured this would help." And he's like, and he pulls his shirt up, and he's like, "I've actually got plastic underneath." So he's wearing I forgot what the technical term for it is. I guess he just called it a sweatsuit. But he was like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to lose weight." And they don't really believe him, but they're just like, check the area. There's got to be more here. One thing I did like that the movie had, which I was like, "Ooh, that's nice," like pretty graphic, was they mentioned there was a lime pit. And like, okay, so that's going to come up, and we're probably going to see someone thrown in the lime pit, or just at least a dead body in there. And we do see a dead body in the lime pit, so that was cool. The body was like in a state of not decomposition, but deterioration, I guess, let's say. Yeah, I mean, all in all, it was fine. It was fine. Again, this is just my opinion. I just got a little disappointed because some giallo movies, they're kind of just, they're a little like whatever. This one I just thought was like up here, and then it just kind of slowly started going down. But it never was bad. It just didn't live up to that first 5 minutes. Although I will say, the ending with the reveal, I was right. But that was done. It was done pretty well. And that last climax scene was fairly tense, and it was shot very well. Although there were, again, a couple of things that I was like, why are they doing this? The killer has a knife, and then drops the knife, has a gun, and these two girls are like, we're in this dark room, big room, dark room, like a living room or a drawing room or something. And like these two women go and they drop down and they're hiding behind like a couch or something. And then Mark Damon is like kind of hurt and he's down and they're all hiding in the shadows. And the killer is kind of standing by the window, and you hear a gunshot. And I'm thinking, oh, was it the police shooting from outside? Did they get him? And then it cuts back and it's the killer is still like scanning with the gun. And then it'll cut away to one of the other ones and you hear a gunshot again. And then the third time you actually see like a close up of the gun, you know, shooting. But I don't know why I would have honestly just cut those two sound effects because it didn't really, the movie didn't sell it, the fact that he was supposed to be shooting. So either shoot that in a way where it's like we see him and he's actually shooting, or just cut out those first two sound effects and just show the one time when he is shooting. Anyways, yeah. I'll mention this too. So once the body went in the trunk and they were moving the trunk, and then the trunk is on the car, and the trunk arrives at the house, and there were some jokes about like trying to move it. What's his name is in it? God, I really like him, but I forget his name at the moment. Luigi Pigozzi is like trying to move it, and he's just like, and he's like handing it down to this next guy, and he's just like, careful, it's really heavy. And there's all these jokes like, oh, there must be a dead body in here. And then these girls come up and they're like, dead body? How badly do you think it's mutilated? That then reminds me something else I need to say. Ooh, some of the girls were incredibly annoying. And I mean that as like the students at the school. The one girl in particular, they always have to have, well, not always, but a lot of times they have to have this character she's like the funny one. And this girl was not funny to save her life. She was really annoying, but the script really thought that she was funny. And the actress, well, she did it. She said the lines, but didn't really. Again, I don't really fault her because it just wasn't written funny. But it was more of anything. She was obnoxious, kind of like me. But yeah. Anyways, going back. So the thing with the trunk, and then they're like, should we take this up to the principal's room? Like, no, just put it in the garage. And that's where the body is, the first body. And I was thinking, okay, so they're kind of copying Les Diaboliques with the body in the trunk type of thing, and that being this whole MacGuffin that's going around. But then it doesn't really go anywhere in Naked You Die. But, funny enough, it never gets opened. And at the very end of the movie, after they've resolved the murder, they still have the trunk, and they're still making quips about it weighing as if there's a body inside. And considering that there were a bunch of murders, maybe you want to look inside, but no, they don't. So it just kind of ends on it. Again, it's supposed to be funny, but it's just not really. And I'm fairly forgiving with a lot of stuff like that. Like there's a lot of jokes in giallo movies that aren't really executed well, but they'll still get a laugh out of me. Like I give it A for effort. But gosh, this one it did not make me laugh. And I remembered when I covered this movie in the Forgotten Giallo film series, and I was scrubbing through the film trying to find a clip out of context that I thought would be really funny. And I struggled. I really struggled. Like, I was just like, yeah, these parts are, I can tell these are supposed to be funny, but they're just not. Like and then there's another part where all the girls are in the room, and the funny girl has got like a scuba, like goggles on, and she's like making fun of one of the teachers. And then the teacher comes in and she like turns around so she doesn't know she's making fun of her. And you could tell this beat was, you could tell it was supposed to be funny. And again, it wasn't. I'm getting off. Yeah. Again, I didn't dislike the movie per se. I just, a lot of these movies I'm going to have to go back and watch a second time now that I know what I'm getting into. That's usually when I will either start liking a movie more, or I will double down and be like, yeah, I just don't enjoy this. But Naked You Die, I will try and check out again. And again, I do recommend checking it out. if you're a giallo fan. It's might be a little hard to come by, although you can find it on YouTube. I think the channel is called Eurosleaze or something. But you should be able to find it really easy. And yeah, if you've seen it, let me know what you think. If you haven't, you're interested, I don't know, tell me more. I doubt many of you will have never heard of this movie before this video, unless you're new to giallo and you're one of those viewers. But yeah, I would say in the grand scheme of things, this is a movie more to watch when you kind of start running out of giallo films. But it's like, yeah, still watch all the greats, all the ones from Argento, Bava, Fulci, Lenzi, Martino, and then those little ones from the directors that only did a few: Aldo Lado, Luigi Bazzoni. I gotta be careful with some. Riccardo Frito had a few good ones, or a couple good ones, I guess, maybe just one. But yeah, this is Antonio Margheriti, and I don't think I've seen any of his other films, so I'm kind of like, come on, buddy. I know you're good. I know you're a good filmmaker, but it's kind of like with Fernando de Leo. Fernando de Leo did Naked Violence. Yes, Naked Violence and Slaughter Hotel. And Naked Violence you could say is a Polizioteschi, or you could at least say that, because the guy made so many Polizioteschi's, that I don't think he made that movie thinking, I'm making a giallo. But I think Slaughter Hotel he kind of was, although it is a little bit more gothic. But the point I'm trying to make by bringing this up is some directors who are good directors do make flops in terms of giallo, like Duccio Tassari. Death Occurred Last Night. Yeah, I was not crazy about it. But again, like I said, none of these movies, in my opinion, have been like just bad. In the Folds of the Flesh, I really had a problem with because it just, I don't know, it tried too hard to be like twist after twist, but I'm getting off. That's really all I got to say about the movie. Hold on, stop. I made a mistake. So I completely forgot that Naked You Die is in the Forgotten Gialli box set volume 6. Like right there. I had made a note for when I did cover this movie. I need to watch it on here, and I guess I just completely forgot. So honestly, a lot of the Forgotten Gialli box sets, I own a lot of giallo films that I've acquired since I started the channel. I mean, I've had a collection going back a decade, but recently, since Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome have become a thing, whereas they weren't when I was collecting these movies, it was really only Blue Underground. I started acquiring these movies like, oh, whoa, that's on Blu-ray now. I'll have to get that. But when I was doing the channel, I had the whole Patreon viewings that I was doing. So I decided I'll wait until I'm about to cover these movies. So I just sat on a lot of these movies and didn't watch them. And now I decided I'm not going to do the viewings anymore. I don't really like doing them, and they don't seem to be popular at all. So, but I'm now going back and covering as many of these films as I can. And so I'm probably sitting on over 20, 30 giallo films in the last 2 years that I haven't actually seen. So I forgot that Naked You Die, I actually do own on Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome. And I mention this because in the review, I said, well, it's fine. Maybe I need to see it. If I could see it remastered with better picture quality, better sound quality, maybe Vinegar Syndrome did it, I'd have a different opinion. Well, it turns out that is totally possible, and I am going to rewatch it on Blu-ray, and I will add my thoughts after that. So stay tuned. Well, you don't have to, because it's going to happen right now. Okay, I have just finished rewatching Naked You Die, and I need to rescind some of my statements and opinions. Firstly, I'll say that I chose to watch it in the English dub, and I'm very glad that I did. Now, the English version ran, I think, 20 minutes shorter, and I actually agree with a lot of the the cuts. Now I'll say we lost some of the jokes, which works out fine actually. I said in my initial review that I thought the one girl, I forget her name, but the one who's always making the jokes, the one with the walkie-talkies, which I didn't actually mention that in my initial review, is that a big gimmick of the movie and for her character is that she has these walkie-talkies, and as the investigation goes along, she hides one of the walkie-talkies in the main room where the inspector is questioning people, and she goes back to her room and she's listening in. And so she knows, like, when, you know, the investigation wants to talk to this person or that person. Forgot to mention that, but again, I was watching it in a pretty poor quality in Italian, English subtitles. Not that it was hard to follow along, but it just wasn't as engaging, the poorer quality. And the thing I said was, boy, I'd like to see this movie remastered with better picture, better sound quality from like Vinegar Syndrome. And it already was, and I already owned it for like however long it's been out. I literally bought this, like, I think pre-ordered it, but like I said, I'd made a note to go back and review Naked You Die and probably do a review and Jolly Tally for it. But in the course of me doing these little unscripted movie reviews, I fucking forgot that I owned it. And, but yes, so some of her bits, like her jokes, her being funny, were cut, which I was glad about. Part with, when she saves, I think it's Lucille, or no, it's I think it might be another girl. Fuck it, forget. I do forget all the girls, even though I've seen this movie twice now. But the scene where the one girl is getting strangled in the pool and she's rescued, and our funny girl actually goes in there and like disarms the like rips off their connection so they can't be breathing underwater. And then the scene where like the investigators are interrogating the groundskeeper. And he's like, well, I was just wearing, you know, like, yeah, I'm not wearing a top. I'm wearing the bottoms because I'm trying to lose weight. And that whole part was cut. And I actually kind of liked that part. So I would have kept that. We lose the part when they arrive and they're moving the trunk. And they're like, oh, it's so heavy. There must be a body in here. And then at the end where the trunk still hasn't been opened, but it's still as heavy as if there's a body in there. And now, okay, I probably missed something here, because in the movie, the killer, in order to stage this killing, so the killer is Lucille's cousin, and you find that out like halfway through the movie, that the investigation points out that, well, if Lucille was in the shower like 10 minutes before this other girl was, and this other girl got killed, it's possible that Lucille was the target, considering that she's, I think, set to inherit this vast fortune, and so somebody could have tried to get at her money. And so we get to the end and we find out that, yes, the killer was in fact related to Lucille, and it was over the money, and it was her cousin. I think his name was Paul. It says Pierre, but I think that's just the Italian version, because I'm pretty sure his name was Paul. But anyways, he's the killer, and he ended up pulling out the body from the trunk of the real Miss Clay and put it in the lime pit, so he was going to stage the whole thing to be like Miss Clay had killed all these people, and when she finally killed Lucille, she came to her senses and in a moment of grief killed herself, and I guess threw herself into the lime pit. But okay, yeah, it's pretty giallo in terms of, it's well thought out, but it's not really well thought out. Like, and when they like ask, like, well, why did he stage the body if he hadn't killed Lucille yet? And they're like, well, he had to, because we were going to fingerprint everybody, and we would have known that she wasn't the real Miss Clay. But still, it's like, but wouldn't they also have found out that the forensics that the body had died days prior and all this stuff? Whatever. Again, I might be like missing some details that might have been said, but yeah. One thing I will also say about the U.S. the English dub is the dubbing for Miss Clay / Pierre or Paul was way better. It didn't sound like it wasn't bloody obvious that it was a man who was Miss Clay, and I think I think the original Italian dub should have done something like that, because like I previously said, the moment she started talking, I was like, okay, well, that's a guy in disguise. So that's probably the killer, I'm assuming. Watching it in English, I was like, whoa, okay, see, I can't tell that that's a guy undercover. But, and to its credit, you don't pick up on that that's probably the killer until about halfway when I'll just call them Miss Clay, because that's who they're in disguise as. When Miss Clay keeps going around and telling the girls to, like, hey, you got to go to bed, hey, this that, and then a murder would happen, like, moments after that, where it kind of makes, like, takes her off the hook. You almost not thinking, okay, well, she was just there. I doubt she would have literally just, like, hidden around the corner and come back and killed someone. But then, like, after the shower kill, all the girls come together, some of the other staff come together, and then Miss Clay comes in, like, minutes later, where you're like, where were you? So that's about the time I would have guessed it was the whoever Miss Clay is. And again, there's no evidence that it's actually a man disguising himself. So you would just think, okay, so I guess it's Miss Clay. And the thing that you'd have to, at least for me, would be, okay, so she's the new teacher. I guess she's a psychopath, and you might be able to pick up on, oh, maybe the first person that she killed, that she put in the trunk, was that teacher, and she is taking her place. But the reveal that it is this other person, I think actually would have been way more like, whoa. But in the Italian one, like I said, it was like, yeah, I was waiting for that shoe to drop, because it was painfully obvious through the dubbing that you have a man dubbing the voice. But yes, I thoroughly actually enjoy this movie. Any of the complaints I made about Antonio Margheriti and this being like, oh man, this doesn't seem like a good debut effort, or is it a full-on debut, or is it just a giallo debut? Yeah, this is a giallo debut. He's done like, he'd made about 12 films before that. But so anyways, I rescind what I said. And yes, watching this movie in better quality did make it better. Watching the English version, where it actually made a lot of cuts, did help. It really helped the pacing. So yes. Now, I would say watch this movie however you want to. If you want to watch it in the Italian, go for it. If you want to watch the English, go for it. Or do what I did, watch the Italian and then watch the English, and really take note of the cuts, because this is a very interesting thing with editing, is sometimes for the sake of pacing, you really need to just trim the fat. And a lot of the movies I've been reviewing, I'll notice that the scenes that are not redubbed into English, or that are like lesser quality, are the pieces that were cut. And in some instances, I don't think they should have cut some of those things. Like I mentioned, this will probably come out after this review, but while watching the double, there was a handful of scenes that were very brief, lines that Ava Olin said to John Sorrell, and I was like, ooh, that actually informs a lot about her character. I really wish they kept that. But for this movie, I'll say the vast majority of the cuts probably were for the best. The music also stood out way more in the English cut. To my knowledge, it was the same soundtrack. I recognized a lot of the same music, but some tracks came in at a slightly different time. Like the track that I really liked didn't actually come in until like a couple beats later, but that was fine. And the climax, where we find out who the killer is, and the gunshots, I think there was one extra gunshot, unless I was just mistaken, but I think there was one extra gunshot. And now, I don't know if the music throughout the movie was altered, or if it was just I could hear it better. Like I'm saying, I don't know if this is part of just the restoration, made it pop more, or if it was that I was watching the English dubbed, the English cut version, and it was just the music was rearranged. But a lot of the scenes that were like, the police investigating the dead bodies, and then this tense moment, this person's trapped in the cellar, and this other moment, the music just was way more noticeable and way more kind of like putting you on edge
which is I'll say it's a very American thing in terms of horror versus giallo. Giallo doesn't always utilize music in tense moments to kind of be like, to put the audience on edge, like, uh-oh. But more traditional horror movies, especially American horror movies, and especially when you watch US cuts of a lot of these movies, they'll change the music so it's more horror. And I probably would have to go back and rewatch the movie in the Italian remastered just to see if the music is rearranged. But the version that I watched, it was just more noticeable. And like I said, that could just be because I was finally watching the remastering. Don't know. But yes, I actually really like this movie now. I'm glad I watched this again with the trimmed version. And I say that because the original movie is 97 minutes. So it's an hour 37. The version I watched was an hour 17. So literally 20 minutes cut, which the movie was like fast, and I liked it. So I was actually able to observe how this movie is a staple in the evolution of giallo films. You go from, like a lot of these 1960s giallo films are not slashers. They're not whodunit mystery killer type movies. A lot of them are erotic sexploitation, erotic thrillers, or a little bit of detective stories, or someone going insane, or I mention this a lot, but the umbrella is much bigger. The Venn diagram of all these different things it could be. The movies are more kind of near the outside of the Venn diagram, and it's not really until Bird that they kind of start getting closer to the center in regards to them being more what most people recognize giallo films as, which unfortunately is Italian slashers. The hardcore giallo fans will know, well, it's way more than just that, but I think the vast majority of people who got into giallo, it was this idea of, they are Italian slasher films. They are Italian mysteries. It's like a slasher, but it's more focused on who is it. And that is an oversimplification, but in terms of that, because I feel like that's what the genre ended up kind of like focusing in on after Bird and after the other movies with by Argento, Bava, Fulci, Martino. They really started focusing in more on emphasis on the killings. And a lot of these other ones, there might be like a killing that just happens, but it's not really like a mystery in terms of who did it. Not always. Anyways, I say all that to say this film, because the other like really like hardcore giallo for the 60s is Blood and Black Lace, in terms of this is what it's going to be. But all the other films, and of course I'm not mentioning everything, but a lot of the other ones are kind of more those outer fringes of the greater umbrella, the greater Venn diagram. Naked You Die is a mystery slasher. The only thing I will say that I do stand firm on, that I said before, is the killings are not handled well. But the movie is very stylistic, and watching the Vinegar Syndrome version of it, Margheriti's style is you can see it more. How he does this. So like, like a woman turns around and she's like, it's just you. No, what are you doing? Hands go up, and then it's like zoom on her eyes as she's like, oh, and then it zooms out, and like, the hands are gone and she falls dead. Stuff like that. It's, you could be like, it's cheap, but it works. And that's a big part of giallo, is just the style. And like, if you can use the style to hide the weaknesses in terms of this movie, it would be the budget's not there to pull off these graphic kills. The vast majority of the kills are like people getting strangled, and it's really bad, but the style of the movie does compensate it. And there's like one kill, Luciano Pigozzi, where he gets like stabbed with a scythe, but again, it's just like the camera pushes in on him. He's like, no, no, and it's just like so close to him, and he's and then like cuts to a different angle, and like the scythe is supposed to be in him, but it doesn't really look like they actually did it. Anyways, so the kills are still like, don't go into this movie expecting really good kills. It's not really about that, and that's fine. So I will say, if you don't know that, just know that. Anyways, yes, so that is Naked You Die, also called The Young, the Evil, and the Savage, also called Schoolgirl Killer, and the English cut version that I watched is Schoolgirl Killer. But yes, thank you for watching that. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for making it to the end. I'm so sorry that I cut a version of this. I actually cut a version that I had uploaded on YouTube waiting for the day to drop. And I realized after all that, like, holy shit, the movie is on Vinegar Syndrome. So I decided I'm gonna go back, rewatch the movie, add it to it, and I could have just recut this whole thing with just my opinion, but of the Vinegar Syndrome. But I did I thought the flaws, I thought my mistake would be pretty funny, and it would just be a good review, because especially if I came out of watching the remastered Vinegar Syndrome version and I had a different opinion, I thought that would be fun. Or if I doubled down and had the same opinion, was just like, nah, it's all right. I thought that would be funny. So either way, and it turns out I do like this movie better remastered. I like it better cut down 20 minutes. Yes, that is my final word. Like I said, I might go back. If I do end up giving this movie a Jolly Tally, I will do the Italian version, which is 20 minutes longer. You do get a bit more information. But all in all, that's all I got to say. I will reiterate my outro. Have you seen Naked You Die? What are your thoughts on it? Have you seen the Italian and the English cut? If you have, what do you prefer? Which one did you see? If you haven't seen this, did I make you want to see it? Or were you already wanting to see it? And then lastly, have you never heard of this movie until now? Maybe not, but maybe so. Anyways, yeah, give me any questions, thoughts, curiosities, or concerns down below in the comments. I'll get back to you. Don't be a dick. And yeah. Thank you for watching, and this is Tanner Leeser for The King and Giallo, and if nothing else, I will see you next time.
Giro la Martin sta per venire qui.
Ah sì? E lei, signorina Martin, che cosa fa nella stanza del signor De Bra?